Now we're going to look at demonstration or experiment 11. It says that we need a large container of water, items that will sink and float. We also will need our recording sheet, which looks like this. Sink or float, object, hypothesis, sink or float. That means you're going to need a pencil too. So gather your materials and let's begin. Okay, today we're going to take a look at experiment number 11. And I have gone and gathered the materials on the card. I have a tub of water, that's our liquid. I gathered objects from around my classroom to see if they will sink or float. I got a towel, just in case I spill, and I got my recording sheet. So, whether an item sinks or floats has to do with its density. The density is a word we use to describe how much space an object takes up, its volume, in relationship to the amount of matter in an object, which is its mass. If an object has a higher density, it will sink. If an object has a lower density, it will float. Let's try it out. Okay, so I went ahead and wrote down the names of my objects in the column that says objects, and I went ahead and wrote down gourd, coral, rock, pumice, shell, and driftwood. So the objects I collected. Now then the second column, it asked me to make a hypothesis. A hypothesis means an educated guess. So I'm going to make a guess. Do I think that this gourd, it's the first thing I wrote, will float or sink? My guess is that it will float. Now I will test my hypothesis. And I was correct. The gourd floats. The gourd is less dense than the water. Let's try another. How about this coral? Why don't you make a hypothesis in your head? Sink or float? Now let's see. It sinks right to the bottom. It must be very dense. The coral sank. Let's do one more, only because I find this one very interesting. Pumice. It's a kind of rock. Do you think it will sink or float? Write down your hypothesis. I think it will float, even though it's a rock. And it does. Pumice is not a very dense rock, and so it floats in the water. You will continue to make your hypothesis and then test your hypothesis and record your results. Have fun.